Hi guys, in this episode of Planet Thoughts On, I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts to the third episode of the first season of the new Walking Dead spin-off, Tales of the Walking Dead. This episode is called D. And out of the episodes that we've gotten so far, and I think of all the episodes in the season, this is the only episode for which naming the episode after the character that is featured in it and the character that the episode is about works, because all the other ones just feel fucking lazy, and I don't understand why they didn't try to come up with some more creative names, because it's not like they're using the actors' names in the titles anyway, so it's not like about bringing attention to the stars that are in the episodes. So in this case, just like I've been naming the other episode, I will be naming this episode as well. And the title for this episode that I've chosen is A Mother's Love, because it's essentially all this episode is about: Alpha's love for Lydia. But before we get into the episode itself, I want to kind of take a little bit of like or more of an overall opinion about Tales of the Walking Dead so far. Before we got Tales of the Walking Dead, there was two possible ideas or versions of what I thought this show was going to be like. Either very exciting and fun and colorful and interesting, like season 6 and 7 of Fear the Walking Dead, where in every episode we would get very interesting and unique and engaging characters who are very likable, debatably more likable and interesting than our actual main cast. Or alternatively, we would get something that was a little bit more bland and more milquetoast, kind of like World Beyond, but the vibe of it and the visuals were going to be really cool, kind of like the Telltale's The Walking Dead DLC 400 Days. That is not what we got in the first two episodes. The first episode was just boring. Sure, it had some nice visuals, but it was boring. The dialogue was not interesting in any way, shape, or form. It wasn't in an interesting setting. It was just boring. Completely boring. Which is kind of annoying, because for that episode, I expected it was going to be something like very action-packed and very comedic, with Terry Crews being a character in the episode. I thought that's what it was going to be like, but no, it was just boring. For episode 2, we didn't get either of those two options either. We got a very out there kind of concept for the episode, which was basically Happy Death Day, The Walking Dead style. And honestly, after sitting on it for, I think, about 2 weeks now, I honestly ultimately loved the episode, because the characters were fun, the dialogue was entertaining, the interactions were great, the concept was cool, and it was a fun episode. I enjoyed it. It was an engaging episode where I laughed my ass off quite a lot, especially when I watched reactions of other people. For this third episode, we finally get something out of the two options that I talked about. And sadly, it's still not the better one, which would be, in my opinion, the Fear the Walking Dead style of anthology episodes, because I just really found that style really, really engaging. Although, at least, they really copied the way Fear the Walking Dead did their title screens, with all the title cards, and changing the opening theme a little bit for every single episode. They really copied that so much for Tales of the Walking Dead, which I'm actually pretty happy about, because I thought it was a really cool idea in Fear the Walking Dead, and I was worried that it would be kind of wasted on Fear the Walking Dead and not on the actual Walking Dead anthology show. So I'm really glad that they're actually still sticking with that idea and are using it for Tales of the Walking Dead, because it is good. And also doesn't make us listen to the stupid theme that we had in the first episode, which is easily the worst version we've gotten so far. And for this episode, it might have been the best one, but to be honest, I didn't really get too much of an impact on the second episode theme and the third one either way. So they were at least not as bad as the first one. So there's that. Oh boy. Oh, also talking about the title cards, I do want to say something that I've already seen people bring up, which is that the title cards look pretty good, pretty fun, pretty colorful, and really cool to have as like a poster. But I really wish that the font that they used for the title cards, like the Tales of the Walking Dead font and color that they did something more with it, because the way that it is done comes off very flat and very cheap. So hopefully they'll upgrade that for the second season. At least I hope so. But yeah, I guess let's just get into the whole episode as a whole. I don't really want to recap it, so I'm gonna try to just go for the things that I really enjoyed about it. I kind of enjoyed how, in the case of this episode, it was actually a tale of The Walking Dead. It was told as a tale. That is something that I wish they actually kind of did more of. I feel like it would have worked more, because it does kind of bring a reminiscent feeling of something like the Tales from the Crypt or Are You Afraid of the Dark? Which is not necessarily something that I want The Walking Dead to kind of copy or whatever, but kind of homaging stuff doesn't hurt, you know? And I think it worked for this episode. And also, talking about, considering I just talked about all the 3 episodes so far, I do again want to bring up how I completely continue to agree with that comment that I think Kirsten Acuna or something, or somebody on Twitter shared, that every single episode of the show in this first season feels like the first episode of the spin-off. It continues to feel like that, very much so. Because, except the second episode, the best part of the episodes have been the endings, because it makes me just more, based on what we end the episode with, I'm just like, man, I can't wait to see where the story is gonna go from here, and we're not gonna see anything, most likely. So it is kind of a shame, especially for this episode, considering the ending is kind of wild and unexpected. So I definitely want to see more of it, especially because I also very much agree that this episode was the best one out of all the ones that we've gotten so far, and I've heard that it's the best one out of all in general. So we'll see how much that's going to be the case, but it definitely is the best written so far. I feel like I kind of had more fun with last episode, but I do think this one was the better written one. So yeah, I liked that about it. Although it is kind of confusing where in the timeline this is said, especially because they're using the same actress for Lydia as the episode We Are the End of the World, which was episode 2 of season 10. And it's just really confusing because obviously the actress was much younger in that episode, because that was even pre-COVID, so that was at least 2 years. And I believe in that episode it was said 2.5 or 3 years into the apocalypse, and right now it is said that Lydia is like 9 or something, and I don't remember how old she was in that episode. I don't know if it was said or not, but it really confuses stuff. Especially because in that episode we are kind of led to believe that Alpha was the one to create the Whisperers together with Beta, but it's not the case according to this episode, because we meet the actual first leader of the Whisperers, Hera, which, by the way, I'm sorry, but she is a much cooler looking leader of the Whisperer. Her outfit looks sick, her blonde hair the little that we saw looked sick on her outfit, and just the way that the Whisperers were introduced at the end was really, really cool and freaky, and really fucking surprised me, because I did not expect to see anything about them in this episode, honestly, and it definitely upped the episode in its quality. Although, funnily enough, there is actually foreshadowing about that ending throughout the episode. Like, especially I think early on there's one shot where Alpha is looking from the boat towards the shore, and you can see walkers moving in the background. And for a little shot, you can see one of the walkers that is walking stop. And I only saw that because I watched the reaction of Nog Bro Nation, where they pointed it out, and that is honestly so cool that there is that little foreshadowing in the beginning, because it shows that those whisperers that we see in the end were there throughout the whole time, and I really love that. And also, talking about the boat, I did really like this as a location for the episode. It's honestly one of those locations that is a really smart and really cool and really interesting place to set base in the zombie apocalypse, like the prison, which is another really cool location that I really enjoyed. Like, I really love repurposing existing locations or things into zombie apocalypse survival places. I don't think I'm the only one when I say that I love that, and that I found myself looking around my town and thinking about how I can fortify this location and that location and everything after starting to watch The Walking Dead, because I did do that. After playing Telltale's The Walking Dead and watching The Walking Dead, all I started doing is I would look at the school in my town and its fence and how I can easily fortify it and make it zombie proof and the like. And I've seen posts on Reddit that other people have done the same, so this is one of those locations that really brings up that feeling in me that I really want to see that as a setting for a zombie apocalypse thing. And I guess we had the boat in Fear the Walking Dead, although we only had it for like half a season. And yeah, I did really like it in this episode. And actually, I just want to share something personal with you guys. That thing of trying to come up of ways how I can fortify these locations to be zombie proof, which is something that I started doing after watching The Walking Dead for a little bit and playing the Telltale video games, is actually what made me start want to write. Because after trying to think up how I can fortify these locations for zombies, I started thinking about how would a zombie apocalypse kind of spread out in my city, like what would happen if there was a zombie apocalypse in my city. And that evolved in my ongoing story on Wattpad, Dead Inside. So yeah, The Walking Dead inspired me to be a writer, although I don't really write as much as I want to, just because I'm too focused on the YouTube channel, because that's what makes the money, you know. But yeah, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. It was kind of weird in the beginning of the episode because I wasn't really sure where in the timeline it was set, especially with all those fucking beautiful outfits that everybody was wearing, like the evening gowns or whatever. But it was clearly, after a little bit, it was clear that it was set in the zombie apocalypse. And that was kind of like the equivalent to when Rick and Co arrived in Alexandria and everybody was still like having parties occasionally and everything, and they had our characters dress up for it as well. It's kind of reminiscent of that. Might actually be even set around the same time, maybe a little bit further, honestly. I don't know really the timeline. But for me, because of the conflict that this episode kind of shoved into my face of Alpha wanting to protect her daughter from getting too feeling too safe at this place and getting too soft, and everybody wanting to kind of have a life worth living, I guess is one way to describe it. I feel like this is a conflict that we've had before, especially I feel like in The Walking Dead during the Alexandria days, like when they first arrived in Alexandria. Carol was worrying that they would all go soft and would not really be able to be as harsh and as ruthless as they would need to be. And I definitely like this conflict in this episode because it kind of made me have to root for Alpha, which that makes for a more entertaining character because she's supposed to be a villain, she's supposed to be a psychopath, and yet the episode makes her out to be the one that is the reasonable, especially considering that she calls out the antagonist of the episode and gets him kicked off the boat, or more so gets him to throw himself off the boat. So I did enjoy that. What I didn't enjoy about this is how the other main character of the episode, Brooke, blamed D, or should I say Alpha, for everything that happened on the boat and everybody dying on the boat, which doesn't make any fucking sense, because how was that her fault? The guy that she called out for signaling people on the shore was the bad guy. He killed everybody. He started everything because he wanted his buddies to get on the boat as well. And if they just got on the boat, it would have been fine. Without like trying to kill everybody, if they just joined in, I don't think the rest would have complained. But no, we gotta have a fucking Negan-like antagonist. But yeah, I feel like that is kind of the weak point of the conflict between the two characters, because otherwise I think she's a pretty good foil for Alpha's character in this, whereas Alpha is kind of brutal and uncaring, but ultimately wants to protect her daughter. Brooke is not really personally caring for Lydia, but she wants for her to live a normal life, but she doesn't really realize that in this world you cannot really fully live a normal life even as a kid. You kind of have to grow up quickly to be able to protect yourself. The world has not been rebuilt to the point where kids can be normal kids again, and won't be for a while. So it kind of makes her come off as naive, which is why I root for Alpha in this episode. So yeah, that first half of the episode before Alpha and Lydia leave the boat was honestly kind of slow, but overall had a decent amount of content and character interactions, and I enjoyed it. The rest of the episode kind of has more impactful moments, but the content in between those moments is kind of really lacking, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of weird how they structured the episode because of that. Because yeah, the first part of it is not really exciting, but it has more of a plot, where the second one is just kind of the characters wandering around with some cool scenes here and there. And yeah, the scenes are really cool. The scene where Lydia and her mom hide underneath the walker, beautifully gory, beautifully emotional, based on the cries of the actress playing Lydia. What is with fucking actresses who play Lydia being fucking amazing? I don't know, but I really liked Cassidy, who plays older Lydia, and I also really like this actress playing Lydia quite a lot. So that scene was really fucking beautifully gory. I really like that. Then we had another couple of scenes where they killed walkers that were pretty cool. I love that Alpha was smart about how she took down the walkers with pushing the kind of caravan extended rooftop thingy onto them, so she can more easily kill them, because they were just covered by it, so she didn't have to hold them or whatever. And I do kind of root for Alpha when she tries to teach her daughter to protect herself. And it really annoyed me to have Lydia constantly scream that she doesn't want to, because it's not a matter of whether you want or not. It's something you have to do. It kind of reminds me of Sarah from Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 2. That whole experience with the kind of person that Lydia's character is in this episode is very similar to that, because if you guys haven't played the second season, you should definitely play it. But in that one, without spoiling much, I'll just spoil you the character, what the character is. She's a very I don't know what's the word for it. Like, she's a very coddled child. She's very she's a very sheltered child that is supposed to be older than the main character of the Telltale games, Clementine, and yet she acts as if she's a younger kid. And she doesn't really know how to protect herself, how to kill walkers, and hasn't really dealt with the brutality of the world at all. So it's kind of reminiscent of very much reminiscent of how Lydia acts here. She constantly asks about her dad, not realizing that he's dead, maybe due to the trauma. That is possible. And also she kind of wants to go back to the boat after she saw everybody fucking dying. Again, could be due to trauma and her brain protecting her from it, but it just makes for a very annoying kind of bratty, spoiled child. Although I did really like the thing about fairies in this episode, and how she talked about fairies to her mother, and how she told Brooke that she really liked fairies. That's one moment where it really makes you kind of hate Alpha, and it reminds you how much of a terrible parent she is, because for all the good things that she wants to teach Lydia, there is nothing wrong with Lydia still having child characteristics and child traits like liking fairies and stuff. So I don't understand why she shuts that down. It definitely makes her come off as an asshole. But I love how by the end of the episode that kind of comes back with her saying to her mom that she hears fairies talking to her, or the trees talking to her. And you can, at that point, assume that maybe it's, again, trauma causing her to kind of make up that bullshit. But it's obviously revealed to not be the case. But I really like the way it's presented as maybe the kid losing her mind. And that even makes Alpha contemplate killing her child, which really made this episode come off really fucking dark, which I really like about it, because that's kind of what I wanted from Tales of the Walking Dead. Sure, I don't mind some episodes being more lighter, fun stuff, but I do really want some of the most gritty stuff that you can only kind of do in an anthology format, you know? Kind of like a Mist type scenario is something that I'm looking for, you know? If you haven't watched The Mist, go watch it. It's a good movie. I have my gripes with it because it's made by Frank Darabont, but it is a pretty good movie. And the ending is a really fucking heart-wrenching one. And that's kind of what I'm looking for from Tales, that kind of heart-wrenching vibe. And this episode kind of delivered on that. I obviously know that she doesn't kill her daughter, but the fact that she got so close to it was really, really dark, and I really, really liked it. And again, the way Samantha Morton portrayed it really made you feel for Alpha resorting to that, to killing her own daughter, because she's just not good for this world, you know? She's not gonna be able to survive. And I love how in that moment, she also starts hearing those voices in the forest. And then it's revealed that it's a bunch of whisperers with their original leader and creator, Hera. And I love that, again, it kind of explains why Alpha calls herself Alpha, why Beta calls himself Beta and everything, because the original Whisperer had a Greek name, Hera. And also, we're shown essentially that the mask and the hair that Alpha wears as her Whisperer mask is Hera's head. Because we're shown that she is blonde, and we know that Alpha's mask is blonde from seeing it on the main show. And they even basically fucking show it to us, that she cut her head off and took her mask and everything, and I really love that. And I also love that location where Alpha tells her story from. It really feels very whispery, with like dead animals hanging from the side and walker heads and shit. I love that. I love that. That might be the thumbnail of this. I'm still not sure what I've chosen for the thumbnail, but that might be the thumbnail for this. But yeah, overall, a pretty good episode. The best written one, not necessarily the most enjoyable, but because it is the best written one, I'm still gonna call it the best. So, in terms of a rating for me, I think I'm going to go with something along the lines of maybe an 8.9 at most. I'm more leaning towards 8.6, but considering kind of the exciting end with the reveal about the Whisperers, I kind of want to lean more towards an 8.9 out of 10. And again, I'm more so rating these in relation to the other episodes, not really to anything in the Walking Dead universe as a whole, but yeah, I still think it's a pretty good episode. It's just that it's really annoying how all of these episodes feel like the pilots of a bunch of different spin-offs. That is not the way to do an anthology. the way Fear the Walking Dead is doing these kind of episodes is the way to do an anthology. Because, like, look at episodes 1 of season 6 and season 7 of Fear. You can literally watch those 2 episodes of those 2 shows, of those 2 seasons, almost without any context. Well, maybe you need some context, but you can watch them without having seen the rest of the show, and you can still enjoy them. They feel very self-contained. And that's why it makes them good. They're very self-contained, and they feature very entertaining one-off characters. That's kind of what I wanted from Tales. And so far, we haven't really gotten too much of that, because at best, the characters become entertaining only at the end of their episodes, or are only entertaining in the most nonsensical and dumb episode for which we don't know what was canon, which was episode 2. Because I actually liked Blair and Gina quite a lot in the second episode. They're probably the most entertaining new characters. Not that we have too many to pick from, but there's that. But yeah, I don't know. Overall, I enjoyed this episode. So yeah, I guess let's go through my notes, which were actually definitely more than I had for last episode, I guess. Where even was last episode? Oh yeah, there it is. I definitely have more. But to be honest, for last episode, I was just more confused and annoyed as I watched it. Now that I've had more time to sit on it, yeah, I definitely like it more, like I said in the beginning. So yeah, let's get through my notes. The first thing I've written is, how can you not shower after having sex? And that is in relation to the fact that in the opening shot, which honestly, now that I think about it, really has no connection to anything, we have the other main character of the episode, Brooke, have sex with her boyfriend, which, by the way, I don't know who the actor for the boyfriend is, but I kind of liked him, and I wish we got to see more of him, because for whatever reason, he really had that vibe that certain characters from Fear the Walking Dead that I really like have. Like characters like Troy and Jake from Season 3, or Will from Season 7. Like that kind of aura, for lack of a better term, he really had, and I really enjoyed about it. But the note that I wrote down is in relation to the fact that after they had sex, Brooke dressed up into the beautiful dress. I would never dress up right after having sex. Like, doesn't that feel disgusting? I don't really have a point of reference, but I don't know. I would want to shower after that before wearing a dress. Or any clothes, honestly. But especially that kind of like Satan, or whatever the word for that kind of fabric is, like, wouldn't you want to shower after that because you're all sweaty and shit? I don't know. But it was a beautiful dress. One that I would not mind wearing. It's not weird. I am trans. Watch the end of the video for more context if you didn't know. So yeah, the next thing that I've written is, why the fuck are they dressing up if the outbreak has already started? I guess they did the same in Alexandria when our crew arrived. It might be around the same time even. And yeah, I already kind of talked about it, how it's kind of dumb, but I also kind of understand why they would want to do that, and it's very much like what happened in Alexandria, so I'm not really going to dwell on it too much. The next thing I've written is, this guy is asking to be killed. And I'm talking about the bartender guy who turned out to be the villain guy later on. But he was really being an asshole to Alpha, and I was really worried that he was gonna die because I thought he was not a bad guy, he was just a random character, but he really had a daring mouth on him, I'll tell you that. The next thing I've written is, this is the Shane debacle all over again. Alpha is the only one with perspective. That is in relation to the fact, if you remember how in Season 2 of the main show, we were obviously already into the zombie apocalypse, but everybody was still kind of trying to be very naive about everything, and it was still trying to keep some of the society kind of thinking going, like, going out of your way to look for Carol's daughter, even though you pretty much know that she's dead, or trying to spare Randall despite the fact that he would be a threat to the group, and how Shane was the one who kind of knew that there were things that needed to be done. Because when you think about it, our characters from later seasons, like season 4, season 5, would not do the things differently from Shane, really. Maybe they would have a little bit of a better presentation about it, but they would very much agree with him and do what needs to be done. And this is pretty much the same kind of conflict here, which I already kind of talked about, but Alpha thinks that she needs to teach her daughter how to survive and to make her tough, whereas Brooke thinks that she still needs to be a child for a little longer at the very least and have a life worth living, which again is not something that I disagree with. But to be honest, in the context of the early apocalypse, it does kind of come off as naive. I can understand it maybe like 4 years in, 5 years in, I don't know how many years in this was, but I can understand it after it's been a while since everything started. Like, you would want to stop thinking from the point of view of just surviving day to day and more into long-term kind of what is the point of continuing to survive. But when it's early on, when society is still crumbling, it does come off as kind of naive, you know? The next thing I've written is, I'm surprised they copied the anthology intro ideas from Fear so much. And I already kind of talked about it, and I'm glad that they actually copied it because it was a good fucking idea. Next thing I've written is, these visuals, man. But to be honest, that applies to pretty much every single episode of the show so far, so not really much to talk about in particular for this one. Next thing I've written is, kind of dig this location, a boat in a swamp. Already kind of talked about this. I like the boaty location and how it could have been a really cool locations to have Walking Dead season on, you know? Next thing I've written is, I'm so sick of warlords that are so theatrical and self-righteous and self-absorbed. Now I wish Dee killed him. And that is in relation to that scene where it's revealed that the bartender guy who Alpha talked to in the beginning turned out to be the bad guy of the episode. And he was, again, going around killing people because he wanted more space for his men on the boat. And the way he was acting came off very theatrical and over the top. Pretty much how every single fucking villain has been in the Walking Dead universe. And especially the main show. I feel like he came off very Negan-like, I feel like. And I really liked when Brooke called him out about it, like him acting as if after he kills all these people, everybody's just gonna put up with him and live happily ever after. I did enjoy that about it, but again, I wish Dee killed him at that point because she had an opportunity and she kind of threatened him, but I was kind of against it at the time because I thought he was a good guy. Next thing I've written is, I can see why they said this was the best. It feels like Telltale's The Walking Dead, like 400 days. Which again, I already talked about how I expected that this show was either gonna feel like 400 days or like Fear the Walking Dead. Either one of the two, or at least that's what I hoped and expected there was going to be, and I'm glad we finally got an episode like that. Because also kind of the structure and the tone felt very reminiscent. I could have easily imagined like the dialogue choices that I would have if this was like Telltale's The Walking Dead 400 Days. I can definitely see the whole structure of the little story of this character. It felt very much like Telltale's The Walking Dead. And I think that might have to do with the fact that it was a boat, just like in the final season. And just the way the story was kind of structured, because in those kind of, especially in the 400 Days DLC, you kind of have the structure of, okay, we have like 20 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes of the story be about setting up all the characters and the setting, and then shit goes down. And that's kind of the structure of this episode. For the first 20 minutes, it's setting up story and characters, and then everything is shit going down and characters moving kind of wherever. It felt very reminiscent of that. Next thing I've written is, how is that Alpha's fault? She called the guy out. And that is in relation to the fact that Brooke blamed Alpha for what happened at the boat, despite the fact that Alpha is the one who fucking called the guy out and you fucking attacked her for it. Like, how is this Alpha's fault? If it's anybody's fault, it's fucking Billy or whatever his name was, like the guy who turned out to be a bad guy. It's his fault. He killed everybody. All Alpha did was kind of maybe escalate the situation, I'll give you that, but it's... people were still gonna keep dying anyway, like, there was not really any easy way out of that situation once you got yourself into it. Next thing I've written is, this is so sick. And that is, I'm pretty sure, in relation to the scene where Alpha is killing a bunch of walkers, one falls onto her, and then she kind of rips it open and basically hides under it and calls for her daughter to come under it as well and hide from the walkers and everybody. And I really like that because that was really gory, really brutal, really dark, and really cool. And then the final thing that I wrote down is, wait, what? And that is obviously in relation to the ending of the episode where it was revealed that the Whisperers were a thing before Alpha with this cool badass looking leader, Hera. I definitely would like another episode with the Whisperers. Maybe not necessarily even Alpha, just the Whisperers now. Now that we know that they were a thing before Alpha, we can very much have an episode based on the beginning of the Whisperers. I would like one, so there's that. Or maybe even dealing with groups that the Whisperers attacked or whatever before they met Alpha. That could be something that we can do. So yeah, yeah, I think overall this episode is pretty good. The best written one so far. I'm not sure whether it's going to be my favorite. I'm kind of split between this one and the last one because last one was really fun, honestly. But this one was definitely most like The Walking Dead and most good. And definitely whenever I'm rewatching The Walking Dead, I'll definitely shove it in somewhere. Most likely I'll shove it in where it would be. I think it would be best to kind of shove it in after the Season 9 mid-season premiere. Basically, this should be Season 9, Episode 9. Episode 10. Whereas Episode 10, I believe, is the episode Omega, with Lydia being captured by a group and meeting Henry and everything. I think that's what episode 10 was. So I feel like that kind of fits before that because this episode definitely gives you more context about both Alpha's character and Lydia's character. Because in that episode where Lydia talks to Dario, she talks about how his people are weak and how places like this don't survive because, as we see in this episode of Tales, that's kind of what her mom drilled into her head, that places with people living normal lives don't last in the zombie apocalypse, and that you cannot trust those people. It kind of gives more weight to that argument by Lydia, because when I watched that episode originally, it really came off as kind of generic antagonist philosophy kind of thing. And it also kind of gives more perspective as well for some of the actions that Alpha has in relation to Lydia in Season 9 and 10, especially after she leaves Lydia with her, with Dario, after the season finale, I think it was, because there are certain moments where she's still kind of acting out because Lydia is not with her anymore, and she's angry that Lydia is not with her anymore because she still loves her. And it always kind of came off weird to me because she left her with the group voluntarily, kind of, and it always kind of came off weird because of that. But now it kind of makes sense why she did that, why she acts out sometimes out of love for Lydia, despite the fact that she's so abusive to her. You know, it definitely adds some more perspective. So there's that. And yeah, in terms of rating, like I said, it's somewhere between an 8.6 and an 8.9 out of 10. I think I'll kind of finally decide on it once I've seen all the episodes of the season, but yeah, I'm kind of somewhere there. I think more of like a, on like a personal note, it's probably more of like an 8.6 out of 10, but objectively it's definitely more of like an 8.9, I feel like. But yeah, I don't know. What did you guys think about this episode? Comment your thoughts down below, and let's have a discussion about it. And also, before we end this video, I just want to give a huge shout out to my currently 5 patrons on Patreon. Deadpool, August Dice, Little Uzi, Corby Dead, and King Mr. Mew. Thank you guys for your support, I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me that you've decided to support me and have continued to support me in such a long time. Hope you continue to enjoy my content and continue to support me going forward. Thank you very much. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, check out the link in the description to my Twitter if you want to follow me over there, and to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I am also a writer. And if you do enjoy my stories or simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to my Patreon or to my Ko-fi account where you can pledge support and help get the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy. And I think it's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm going to see you in the next one. Bye!